Hello, hello. This is Power to the Diaspora. My name is Kenidi Rae. Welcome back. And I am happy to say that y'all want to fight me in the street for crop over. That is commendable. But I will defend my position because, of course, I believe strongly. And I think I'm right. The reason I think I'm right is because they're two different conversations. Crop over can be unhinged slave history and also be a celebration of resistance. Those are two separate things. My argument is that if the only things we do are these things, it puts us in a box, and it also becomes the only history we're willing to accept. I think that's really the major thing, right? To deny shared history with the continent of Africa, or because you gotta really be like the whole continent, because any black person was fair game to them, and you gotta remember that. So all kinds of people accidentally ended up in the Americas who really should have had no right to be there because they shouldn't have been able to qualify in that group. But a black person was a black person to them. So, as a means of combating an identity narrowed to 400 years and to a place very far away from the lives that our, I don't know, DNA, our bodies, or everything that's expected to live, right? If we confine our understanding of self to the Caribbean, to Barbados, it's just an unpleasant image, right? It's not such to build an identity upon. And also, I think it makes you easy to take advantage of in the race and class war that is currently going on. Because if you're unable to see that humans are inherently equal, inherently valuable, and there is nothing about them, specifically also nothing about the color of your skin, that makes your life more important than someone else's. If you do not understand that, I think you're vulnerable to the times that are currently going on in what is this, the Western world? Forgive me. I did geography but was not great at it. That is why I think this is very important at a time like this. I feel very safe in my self here in Barbados because this is a predominantly black country. And we're just not having the experience that people are having in the first world. Like the psychological dangers here for the African diaspora is not the same. So I think we can be complacent and get lost in our small world prejudices and the things that you grow up to think are important when you live in a place as little as this. But if you aren't safely tucked away in a 90% black country right now, I fear that you could be vulnerable to believing the wildness that is going on during the immigration, I don't know, apocalypse that's happening from the US, London, and Canada. And something about me is I feel bad to say it, but not guilty enough to stop. So I guess it's fine. But I don't watch the news. I consume no news. It is not allowed on my social media. It is not allowed in the sacred space that is my mind, because it is absurd and manipulated, and used as a form of entertainment has to make your brain sick, I swear. But it's very commonplace, and people feel very responsible when they are up to date on world matters that they can do nothing about except process the emotional load of what is going on in other places. So I choose not to do that because I need my energy for other things. But even the little bit that gets into my purposely news silent space, it terrifies me and overwhelms me. I wouldn't want anybody to think that these crazy people were right about them. So at a time like this, I believe that we need to understand more about ourselves and our history, and to detach from the foundations of what they use for people to feel this way today. Do know the people who feel the way they feel now, others paved the way for them. And you must remember that. So, yes, I agree. We must honor forms of resistance. Resistance is beautiful. Celebrations that arise out of resistance evolve and grow into culture broadly or generally. And I say, I suppose, yes, I think resistance is beautiful, yes. But the root of a thing is the root of a thing, And perhaps something can never truly be separated from its origins. Especially, when those origins are bad or negative, or rely on something that said that 90% of the current population are not humans, you know? And speaking of, I have this other opinion that art and media honoring the beauty and importance of resistance are well available to you. Y'all don't need me for that. There's just so much media, content, music, plays, just everything about resistance. And I want to talk about something else. I want to talk about a pre-resistance period when things were good. And I think those things are worlds apart. I think that you can talk about one of them without discrediting the other, without saying, oh, this isn't important at all. I didn't say that. Also, there's the financial element of crop over. Barbados is a small island with no natural resources, which relies on tourism. And a big attractor of tourism is crop over. Whether we like it or not, crop over is here to stay. And I suppose we have to tell ourselves that crop over has evolved and culture is not static, and these kinds of things, maybe to justify it. I don't know why we're telling ourselves it, or what we tell ourselves specifically, because, well, we can't do without it. That's another big element. I don't know if Barbados is selling colonial history because that's all we know, or if it's what people want to buy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know. I hope is out of habit, of course, because the other one is far too distressing for me, thanks. So yeah, our celebrations of resistance, inherently valuable, also deeply intertwined with the economy and people being able to kind of live in this country. Even if for just that sake, is safe, right? It's safe. But perhaps we need to toss some other activities into the mix that allow us to view ourselves through a different lens. That's all I'm saying, because 400 years is a short time in Black history. For real, for real. It sounds like it's not, but it's really, really a short time for the cradle of humanity. On the topic of how Barbadians see themselves and what we think our history is and what we identify with and accept, I want to talk about the statues in Heroes Square. I have to say statues because there've now been two. To know me is to know I have beef with the monument to the family. Because now there's this thing where if something's going to distress me, my brain almost blocks out part of the experience. So I first saw when that was unveiled. When was it unveiled? It was unveiled on November 28th, 2023. I saw that. I was like, okay, I wasn't excited. I didn't think it was crazy or anything. But I did notice the big rusty chains on it. I was appalled. I was like, wow, you could take those off and pull a boat with them. Like, they would function as chains. That's ridiculous. Like, why would we kick up a big fuss to move a statue of the colonizers to replace it with another symbol of the colonizers but more graphic, right? I was outraged. As several months went by, I realized, oh my gosh, these things on the outside are shackles. My brain didn't even allow me to gather both sets of information at the same time because I clearly just couldn't take it. And again, I was outraged because these are giant shackles in National Heroes Square on on a on a monument to the Barbadian family. What? And I'm not saying that I don't understand. I understand all of the sentiments. I almost get what they were going for, especially, with the way that families were separated and how the Barbadian family has evolved. And I'm like, it's no, I think that we could have still done without the big rusty shackles and big metal chains. I feel as though if we couldn't tell our story in 2023 without larger than life sized shackles erected in National Heroes Square, we must see ourselves that way. We must, as a nation, see ourselves only from that perspective. And those are my receipts. Those are my receipts. And that's why I'm saying we need to do something about that, because a lot of people spent a lot of money to put shackles that are a story tall in the middle of Bridgetown. And I do note they're open. I guess. Sure, all right, they're open, fine. But they could have had that exact same statue without those features, and I bet it would have cost them a lot less money too and been less outrageous. So the monument to the family was placed in National Hero Square to replace the statue of Lord Nelson. This is from Barbados.org. It reads, on November 16th, 2020, the statue was removed from Bridgetown and moved to the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. During the removal ceremony, Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley stated, while we accept that the statue of Vice Admiral Lord Horatio Nelson is an important historic relic, it is not a relic to be placed in the National Hero Square of a nation that has had to fight too long to shape its destiny. We love that. Beautiful. However, they then went on to replace a symbol of the colonial past with larger than life-sized shackles. Surely slavery is also a symbol of the colonial past. Like, why would you do that? While I continue to agree that resistance is beautiful and sacred and the reason we're here today, I 100% agree. I have thoughts and opinions about how being descendant of a culture of resistance and what that does to you as a person who lives in a time where there has never been slavery, well, at least not on this side of the world, and where no white people, again, on this side of the world, own anybody. So that experience hasn't existed. No one's actually had it. Tons of other terrible things have happened a lot more recently, but that specific one, none of us that are alive right now know what it is. But we do know what it is to descend from people who experience those things because, parents pass on their traumas and they dilute. So the bad things aren't quite as bad as they were before, but that doesn't mean they're not bad. We discussed what cultures of resistance do to people in an unreleased episode of a not yet premiered podcast called Rum Shot Republic. That'll be out and about soon and you'll get to listen to it. But we were discussing the police commissioner in Trinidad who was brought in for his expertise, a different perspective to try to get the police together in Trinidad. And he was basically unable to function because the people did not want to take directions from a foreigner. They also wanted to protect their own corruption, which they had been comfortably engaging in the system as it stood. And we weren't discussing it for this specific reason, but it did cause me to think about what a culture of resistance is. We are people raised by others who are like, these white men are dangerous, or these people can elevate your life. My question is, how do we navigate the fact that we are from a culture of resistance and not resist things that don't need resisting, and also about that resistance of things that are foreign, things which are African are foreign to us, which is unfortunate, but the reality of the situation, So we resist things that are foreign. We just resist. We don't know how not to. And I think we should work on it, because I have the more serious example of the commissioner of police in Trinidad. like I said, you'll have to listen to that podcast for a better, more thorough explanation of it. I just had the takeaway. I wasn't teaching. That's a more serious example of that culture of resistance. But man, they changed the Eclipse wrappers. Wabisco changed the Eclipse wrappers from see-through to opaque, and it was an issue because Bajans were like, no, I need to be able to see if the biscuits burn or if they're light, because different people eat different color biscuits. As I said earlier, I don't watch the news, so I did not seek out this information. It came to me because Wabisco clearly had to issue a statement via social media skit to explain that the new wrappers would cause the biscuits to last longer. Bajans were resistant to the change in color of a wrapper. So yes, resistance is beautiful and gives us all kinds of amazing things, but a culture of resistance causes you to not want your biscuit wrappers to change and to take to the internet to explain to Wabisco why they must change them back. And Wabisco said, oh my god, we spent so much money on this because we wanted these biscuits to last longer. At least that's what they said. I don't know if it's true. I don't believe anything anybody says, but I'm sure you can tell that about me. They say they had to explain, no, it will make your biscuits last longer. Any bet Bajans are like, nah, the biscuits weren't gonna last that long anyhow. I will like the wrappers, to be clear, but I haven't seen a rebut to the statement that was issued via skit. And the last thing I want to talk about today is shea butter. Actually, I'm going to start this with the metaphor of how a polar bear can never truly live its best life in a zoo in the tropics, no matter how much ice they get for him, because it's just not cold enough. The idea of a creature being in its natural environment and being able to thrive in that natural environment. Now, Barbados is nobody's natural environment, especially not ours. I do believe that the heat is similar to West Africa, clearly. Oh, and of course the Sahara dust. We do get that. But besides those things, this isn't necessarily our natural environment. Let me connect these things together and make this make sense. I came to know about shea butter. Let's say it was 10 years ago. I have this cousin. She's a nurse. She got a really bad cut on her toe, and she was putting shea butter on it, and it healed it super quickly. And she told my mother about it. Now, this shea butter was in the tiniest container, and I think it was probably from Whole Foods or something. And that was my first interaction with shea butter. Later on, I realized that shea butter comes in much larger containers than that ATBT one that I first interacted with. I came to use it for my hair. I was on my natural hair journey, and I put shea butter in my hair because my hair can take it. A lot of people's can't, but mine can handle the shea butter. So I used to put it in my hair, and they tell you, oh, that is good for your skin. You can cream your skin with it. When I tell you, you can't just cream your skin with shea butter, okay? Like, it's not just for moisturizing skin. You can heal your injuries. Now, if your cut needs stitches, go and get the stitches, okay? But if your cut doesn't need stitches and you put some shea butter on it, oh my god, that'll get you together nice and quick, I promise. Same for, oh my gosh, eczema. You could put some shea butter on that. I used to have much worse eczema as a child, but the heat will still make it flare up. And some shea butter. Oh my goodness. Solutions. Now, again, if you require medical intervention for your eczema, go and get it. But if it's just bothering you lightly, a little shea butter can help you. It'll help you with if you have a rash, a cut, if something's hurting you and you rub shea butter on it, it will be better. No. I know that WebMD is the Wikipedia of information, but I wanted to just give these two things a fair shout. I don't know if you know about vitamin A and D. I think a lot of people with babies know about it, but it also is really good for a scrape, a rash, anything so. But I actually think shea butter is better. And I think shea butter is better because shea butter is from the place that we're from. That's my theory. So I'm going to read you WebMD's shea butter overview. They say shea butter is a seed fat that comes from the shea tree. The shea tree is found in East and West tropical Africa. The shea butter comes from two oily kernels within the shea tree seed. After the kernel is removed from the seed, it is ground into a powder and boiled in water. The butter then rises to the top of the water and becomes solid. People apply shea butter to the skin for acne, burns, dandruff, dry skin, eczema, and many other conditions. But there is no good scientific evidence to support these uses. What? I assure you it works. No, I wasn't expecting that. There's no good scientific evidence to support these uses. That took me by surprise. I actually really thought when I typed that in that the internet would be like, yes, absolutely, shea butter is great for all these things. No. Also asked it how it works. It says shea butter works like an emollient. It might help soften or smooth dry skin. Shea butter also contains substances that can reduce skin swelling. This might help treat conditions associated with skin swelling, such as eczema. So yes, they're like, it works, but the science doesn't explain why. I mean, feels like it does. It's an emollient, you know? Our other contender is topical vitamin A and D. Topical vitamin A and D is used to protect your skin and is helpful for the following purposes: to soothe and protect minor cuts, scratches, or burns, to help relieve chapped, shaped, flaky, or cracked skin or lips, to reduce the chance that wind and cold weather will dry your skin out, to prevent and help relieve diaper rash. Topical vitamin A and D may also be used for other conditions as determined by your healthcare provider. And then we go on, how does topical A and D work? Topical A and D helps soothe and protect your skin. It softens and moisturizes your skin. It also helps form a barrier between your skin and irritants such as wind, cold, or soiled diapers. They do very similar things, and I mean, I have used both of them, so I assure you they work similarly. So I think it's really interesting. A lot of the times when I'm doing my research for these, I find things out that support my points that I just wasn't expecting to support my point, because how you mean there's no scientific evidence to support these uses and it definitely works. Another fun shea butter anecdote I have: when I was in Ghana, I met this guy from Panama who had purchased some shea butter, he said. And I was like, oh no, it's called shea butter and you can put it on little cuts and stuff like that as well. And he's like, and he Googled it. He Googled it and then he goes, oh yes, it is shea butter. And I said to him, I was like, you checked me? Like, you didn't think I knew what me? Okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I think you should grab some shea butter I think perhaps you and it being from the same place might be like some magic that makes it do amazing things for your skin. I will admit, shea butter does not smell the best in its raw form. I like to mix it with peppermint oil and maybe some argan oil or vanilla as well. Then I whip the air into it. I do all of that to make it smell a bit nicer. But the fact of the matter is, it is just as effective if you don't whip it and put other things in it. It works amazing. It'll have your skin looking beautiful. I highly recommend it. So get you some, if only to see what it's like to treat your skin with something from your native environment, something attuned to you. And last thing for today, I'm going to describe shea butter to you guys through the lens of my untitled, unpublished historical romance novel. I'll also mention I'm going to use the term goldsmith in this paragraph. This is an unpublished manuscript. Things will change. But the truth is, the correct title for a master gold artisan is Sika Duamfohine. However, I cannot read that nicely. As I write this book, I want to include these words literally so that we can be introduced to them. But at the same time, I can't even read it properly for you in a sentence. So we have these challenges. I'm probably going to end up not referencing the Asante royal family, perhaps. So maybe I'll use different names. But in our research, I do want us to learn them, you know. I will not lie. It's not even that I can read them to you properly. But I still wanted to tell you, you know, so you can at least know that Master Goldsmith is not an accurate Asante term, but I bet you could have figured that out on your own. So, let us begin. I felt the cool water splash on my temples and run down my neck as she prepared to detangle my hair. She sectioned my hair gently, and I felt the polished ivory comb run across my scalp. The smoky smell of shea butter filled my nostrils, while each of the strands were coated. Then she began gently pulling the comb through my hair, ends first, then up to the roots. It is always hard to be annoyed with Freya while she's combing my hair. You would think that she would take the opportunity to get back at me with a tug she pretended was an accident or a knot that was just too stubborn, but she never did. Her hands were skilled and gentle, and once she was finished, I would look the way someone of my station should. Some Fulani braids today, I think, she said, as she ran the comb from the tip of my nose to get the perfect center part. Yes, I started to nod before I felt her hands press firmly against my head so as not to disrupt her calculations. She styled my hair with the accuracy and intent of the royal astronomers who watched the skies for generations. I did not move again. My mind stilled as the comb marked what could easily be a map of a faraway kingdom into the top of my head. By the time her deft fingers were finished braiding my hair into a casual masterpiece, there was a faint soreness across my scalp from the tip of the comb and the firm grip it took to smooth my curly hair into the shiny, flat lattice work of plaits that now occupied the space formerly held by my open, gravity-defying coils. I think Freya was talking while she braided, but I couldn't tell you what she was on about. My mind tends to drift far away, almost as if the head massage transports me to another life. This time, I was thinking about another girl we grew up with. Her name was Naame. It means creation, and she is the daughter of the Asantehine's favorite goldsmith. All right, if you're hearing this, that means I am one episode closer to achieving my very short list of goals for 2026. And I appreciate you for hanging out with me while I keep my promises to myself. In conclusion, I want you to get some shea butter because I think your skin may literally depend on it. Have you ever tried skin products from the place you were from? Get on it. It'll make your life better, I swear. And also, me asking us to prioritize something besides slave history is not me flying in the face of the resistance that it took for us to get here. I am proud and grateful to be descended from the survivors of Barbados in its worst times. I love and respect that. However, I think we should remember these people as they were not within the scope that they were forced into, you know. I'm not trying to take crop over. We can't afford it, even if I could. Even if I wanted to take it away, we can't afford it. That's one of those things we can't change. But perhaps we need to be aware. We should be aware of it so that we can check and see in which other ways are we unwilling to accept history that paints us in a better light than the one that is good because it's not foreign at least. But you know, just like so many people who are arguing that immigrants built America, immigrants built Barbados, and everything that we are is foreign because no one's from here. So with that, thank you so much for listening. I hope I provoked some thought within you and also that I was able to apologize for any wrongs that I may have stated or caused. I will hear you again because I'm publishing 12 episodes of this show because I said I would and I'm going to do it. So thank you so much. This has been part of the Diaspora and I will hear you next week.